Are you thinking about moving to another state? Maybe buy a house, start a business, lower your insurance rate or tax rate? If you said yes, this video's for you. What is going on, everyone? Let's take a look at the states that got more people coming in than actually leaving. Every year, the United Van Lines company does a thing called the Mover Study. I always find this thing very interesting. And we did a few videos back in 2017, 18, and 19. The states didn't really change that much from year to year, so we stopped doing the list. In 2021, everything changed. States that had been on the list forever dropped off, new states showed up, and actually some of the ones that were in the top 10 back in 2017 had slipped down to like number 20. So the methodology of this video is very simple, or the United Van Lines study. They track the comings and goings in each state across different movers. They look at the data and add up what percentage moved into a state and what percentage moved out. It's like looking at 100 people moving and then figure how many moved in versus how many moved out. And it normally looks something like, out of 100 people moving either way, 55 moved in and 45 moved out. It's that simple. I try and make it as simple as I can because the last time we did this list in 2019, I got a whole bunch of emails from people not understanding the method. I've never been thought of as a math genius, but it seems straightforward to me. Now, I will tell you up front, a couple of these states I've been saying are going to get popular for a long time, and they have now. I don't want to toot my own horn, I'm not that type of guy, but it feels good to be proven right. I'm lying. I am totally that guy. I'll toot my own horn if I get toast right. All right, let's take a look at the states. Number 10, Rhode Island. Yeah, let's start things off with a surprise. The Ocean State has never been a place that's been on my radar as a hot place to move to. It's just not a thing. Rhode Island is small, and most people not from that side of the country ever think about Rhode Island unless they're watching a World According to Briggs video where we're talking about small states. They're always at the top of the list. The study also asked people why they were moving. In Rhode Island, jobs were on the top of the list for both coming and going. 35.9% of inbound people to Rhode Island said it was because of a job, while 35% said they were leaving for a job. The one that stands out is family. 34.3% of the people moving there said they were moving because of family, while 17.5% said they were leaving for family. But in total, for every 100 people moving, 59 left, while 41 came in to Rhode Island. Number 9, Idaho. Congratulations, Idaho, you're not in the top 5 anymore. If you talk to Idaho locals, they will be very excited about that. They'll probably be even more excited when they drop down to like number 48 or something. They're tired of people moving to their state. And in my experience, good-looking younger girls don't like living there anymore. When I first moved up to Oregon, I worked at Netflix, and then I worked at Comcast. All these girls that I talked to, young good-looking girls, they always came from Idaho. They said it was boring. They didn't want to live there anymore. So they'd moved to Oregon. And I almost never met a guy that moved from Idaho to Oregon. Strange, I know. But it was my own personal observation. But Idaho, again, is still in the top 10 list. They were like number 1 for the longest time. When it comes to the reasons people are moving, this one is a total switch from Rhode Island. 17.7% moved in for jobs, while 32% went out for jobs. Idaho doesn't have the best job market. It's a great state, don't get me wrong, that's just not one of their strong points. Where they really were off balance was 29.1% moved in for retirement, while 13.5% moved out for retirement. That's a big difference. For every 100 people moving in or out of Idaho, 60 came in and 40 left. Number 8, Oregon. I guess the high prices, homeless situation, riots, and forest fires haven't soured the rest of America on Oregon yet, because they're still coming in. 5-6 years ago, they were like 1, 2, or 3. They were always jockeying for position with Idaho. And now they've both slipped down to the bottom half of this list. But I'm sure if the crime keeps climbing the way it is here in Portland, Oregon right now, in the next couple of years, I'm sure they're going to fall out of the top 10. We're getting shootings here all the time. When I first moved here 11 years ago, that was not a thing really. You might hear of a shooting maybe once a month, handful of times a year. That was it. Now it's like every single week, we have at least a couple. When it comes to reasons people are moving to and from Oregon, retirement is a big one, and it's kind of shocking because we're pretty expensive. 29% said they're moving into Oregon for retirement. Those people must be coming from California or New York, and 13.5% are leaving because of retirement. Now here's a strange one. 12.66% of the people said they were coming in for cost, while 1.35% said they were leaving because it's too expensive in Oregon. Surprise, surprise. For every 100 people moving, about 60 will come into Oregon, while about 40 will leave. Number 7, Tennessee. This is one of the ones that I've been telling people they should move to, especially the Chattanooga area. Really, I'm not going to toot my horn on this one because it was kind of a known thing. People have been slowly moving into Tennessee for quite some time. The volunteer state outside of Memphis has been very popular over the last decade or so. They were always like number 9 or 10 on this list before, but here they are at number 7, so they're moving in the right direction. When it comes to the reasons for comings and goings, it's pretty even on most things except for cost. 13.2% said they're moving into Tennessee because of cost, while 0.77% said they're leaving because of cost. Tennessee's a pretty cheap state. There's not many other options that are cheaper. For every 100 people moving to or from Tennessee, about 62 will come in, while about 38 will leave. Number 6, Alabama. This is a real surprise to me. I didn't think anyone was really moving to Alabama. My understanding is one of the funnest things to do in Alabama is rent a U-Haul. And of course, drink sweet tea and sweat while you're in that U-Haul. But Alabama does draw people in, and these days it's because they do have some good jobs, and it's relatively inexpensive to live there, both in housing and cost of living. Sure, in the cities it gets a little higher, but a lot of smaller towns and rural areas and suburbs are affordable in Alabama, so I could see that one a little bit. This is the first time they've ever shown up on this list. Now, when it comes to reasons given, they're all pretty much even, except for one. Like families, it's 29% are moving in for family, while 32% are moving out. Health reasons, it's 7% moving in and 5% are moving out. So they're all relatively close. And then you get down to cost. 13.22% are moving in because of cost, lower cost of living they're looking for, while 0.77% are moving out because of cost. Okay, so if you're leaving Alabama to find a cheaper place to live, where are you going? The outskirts of Tijuana? That's about it. For every 100 people moving in and out of Alabama, about 62 are going out, while about 38 are coming in. Number 5, Florida. Florida is a frequent flyer on this list. They always are in the top 10, and here they are at number 5. One of the biggest reasons for that is the retirement crowd coming from New York, Minnesota, Massachusetts, any place cold. As soon as someone hits like 70 and they can afford it, they head down to Sarasota or something like that, start wandering the beach, overly tanned, in a banana hammock, making people uncomfortable. But believe it or not, when asked why people are moving, it was kind of even in the retirement crowd. About 22% said they're moving to Florida for retirement, while almost 19% said they're leaving Florida for retirement. For every 100 people moving, about 62 people moved into Florida, while 38 left. Number 4. West Virginia. All right, everyone, close your mouth. I was just as shocked as you were, but I've been saying this is a great plan for a few years now, especially with the remote workers. Move to West Virginia. It is beautiful land. If you're taking a job, it's the best option for anyone. Real estate is like the cheapest in the nation almost. Cost of living is low. The opioid crisis is dwindling. I mean, it was a major problem there for a lot of years. It's gotten so much better. Their biggest problem is lack of jobs. They don't have jobs. If you're a remote worker and you're bringing your job with you, West Virginia is the best option. Beautiful land, the great outdoors. If that's your thing, this is the best state to move to. I mean, it ranks right up there with Oregon and Colorado for natural beauty. Probably even better than both of those. Charleston, West Virginia is on my short list of places to move if I was single. I mean, younger and single, if I didn't have like a wife, kids, dogs, and a pig that I had to travel across country with, I'd probably give Charleston, West Virginia a serious look. When people were surveyed about the reason they're moving to West Virginia, 72% say they were leaving for work, so those aren't remote workers, and 47 moved in for jobs, so that's a little off. But when it comes to cost of living, 10.53% moved into West Virginia, while they have no data of anyone leaving because of costs from West Virginia. For every 100 people moving, 63 came into West Virginia, while 37 left. Number 3, South Carolina. This is another one I've been telling everyone you need to move to. Now, not the entire state. There are small towns scattered throughout the whole state that you just need to avoid. But if you go to Charleston, Hilton Head, basically the low country of South Carolina, as they call it, that's a great part of the country to live, if you could afford it. You know, when you're right there on the coast, it can get expensive. My opinion, Charleston's one of the best cities to live in, especially if you have some money. You get away from the low country and away from the coast, it is a very affordable state. I mean, that's why 13.26% of the people moved into South Carolina for cost, while only 0.82% moved out. A lot of people do retire to South Carolina. One guy said they call them halfbacks there. Basically, they're people that retired to Florida from New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey, whatever. They realize they're not too keen on Florida, and they move halfway back to South Carolina. They're called halfbacks. Even though Charleston and the coastal area of South Carolina can get expensive, it's still half price compared to like New York City or Boston or Washington, D.C. for that matter. For every 100 people moving in South Carolina, about 63 moved in, while about 37 moved out. Number 2, South Dakota. South Dakota is another one of those states that's kind of new to this list. They hovered around the top 10 from 2017, 18, and 19, and in 2020, they made it to the number 6 spot, and here they are at number 2. What's going on in South Dakota? Well, a lot of retirement's going on in South Dakota. About 18% of the people surveyed said they were moving in to South Dakota for retirement, while about 10% said they were moving out. Now, here's the big numbers here. 50% of the people moving into South Dakota said it was for jobs. So that's a high number. But then you look and the people going outbound, 68.4% said they were leaving for jobs. That's some high numbers compared to the other states on this list. 50% in while 68 are going out. High percentage. When you look at 100 people moving in South Dakota, about 62 moved in for 38 moving out. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget we have another channel called On This Day. There's a link down below. Also, if you get a chance at the end of the video, there's suggested videos. It really helps the channel if you have time to watch another one of those. Really appreciate it. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Vermont. Anyone else see this one coming? I've always said I love Vermont. I just didn't think it would ever make it into the top 10 for hot spots to move to. It's not a big state, so you'll never see a whole bunch of people moving in like something you'd see in California, Texas, something like that. It's a small state, but it's becoming more and more popular. When you look at just the stat of people moving in versus people moving out, they've been on the top 10 list for about 8 years now. Right up the road from Vermont and Maine, they would have been number 11 on this list. So this area is getting more popular. New Hampshire, nobody's showing them any love, but the whole area up there, the North Atlantic, you know, New York's losing people, but Pennsylvania's growing, Massachusetts growing, Connecticut's growing. Of course, we already talked about Rhode Island. That whole area outside of New Hampshire is getting more and more popular. When you look at the reasons people gave for moving to Vermont, that's the only one that's really off. 31% of the people said they're moving there for family, and 17% said they're leaving for family. Everything else is pretty close to a even swap. I mean, retirement inbound is only about 17%, while outbound is 29%. It's not that cheap in Vermont, and it does get pretty cold during the winter. And if you're over the age of 40, you know cold starts really working on you as you get older. For every 100 people moving in Vermont, about 74 moved in, or 25 moving out. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm sure some of you were surprised as I was. I look at these stats all the time, and this kind of blew me away. Kind of a different look. I mean, you could look at the mass amount of people moving into Texas, California, New York, whatever, and Florida actually. They're all going to win in just sheer volume, but this stat is very interesting. All right, everyone. Have a great day. Be nice to each other.